Mia Harrison pressed her sleeping newborn daughter, Sophie, against her chest, struggling to stand upright in the marble-floored foyer of the Harrison mansion. Outside, an unforgiving winter rain pounded the windows. But inside, the real storm raged between Mia and George Harrison, her husband of 3 years, who was now telling her to leave. "I want you both out by morning," George said, refusing to look her in the eye. His once warm green gaze had turned cold, matching the sharp tone of his voice. "George, please," Mia's voice trembled. She was still recovering from the birth 6 weeks ago, her body sore and her heart raw. But Sophie made only a soft whimper in her arms. As if sensing her mother's distress, Mia tightened her hold on the baby. "I've made my decision," George cut in, adjusting the expensive watch Mia had given him on their 2nd anniversary. "Victoria and I have plans, and they don't include you." Mia glared at the figure standing at the top of the sweeping staircase. Victoria, the polished brunette who'd swept into George's life with dazzling charm, making Mia's role as a wife and new mother suddenly feel worthless. She observed them with a faintly smug smile. "Papers are ready," George said. "My lawyer will contact you about the settlement." Sophie stirred again, and Mia's protective instincts flared. She laughed bitterly. "You think money makes up for discarding your own daughter? I'm giving you enough to start over." George lifted his chin, but a flicker of unease flickered in his eyes at Sophie's soft cry. "It's better this way. I'm not meant for any of this." Mia felt something snap. She straightened her back, forcing her voice not to shake. "Keep your mansion, your cars, your so-called perfect life. Just remember this moment. Remember when you picked your ego over your own baby." She ascended the stairs, ignoring Victoria's triumphant posture, and hurried to pack what she could for herself and Sophie. In the master bedroom, once a haven of love, she hastily stuffed diapers, blankets, formula, and a few clothes into a bag. Mia paused at the sight of a framed wedding photo. She remembered how George's green eyes had once gleamed with affection, how quickly he'd traded that devotion for a shallow fantasy. Setting the photo aside, she returned to the foyer. George had vanished, but Victoria lingered, examining her reflection in an ornate mirror. She offered Mia a sneering half-smile. "Don't worry, dear. I'll take good care of him. He needs someone more in sync with his ambitions." Mia said nothing, just secured Sophie and stepped into the storm, leaving behind the mansion and the man who thought he could buy his way out of everything. The cold rain drenched her as she called her old college friend, Regina, who lived in the city. Mia clutched Sophie close, whispering, "We're going to be okay. Sweet girl. Mama's got you." 15 minutes later, Mia was in a taxi. She didn't look back. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 3 years later, the soft glow of a crisp autumn morning illuminated sweet beginnings. The bakery Mia had opened in Boston. She stood behind a display of fresh pastries, her heart warming at the sight of 3-year-old Sophie, now chatty, curly-haired, and bright, intently adding blue sprinkles to sugar cookies. "Careful with those sprinkles, baby," Mia teased. Sophie giggled. "I like lots of sprinkles, Mama." Through sheer perseverance, working long hours, saving every penny, and with Regina's help, Mia had built this little bakery from nothing. The shop felt like more than just her livelihood. It was the symbol of the strength she'd found after George cast her aside. The doorbell jingled. Regina entered, phone in hand, an apologetic look on her face. Mia knew that expression meant bad news. Regina slid her phone across the counter. A business headline read, "Harrison Industries CEO left penniless after fiancé's heist." Mia's heart gave a jolt. "She stole from him," she whispered, scanning the article. Victoria, the woman who broke Mia's family, had apparently siphoned off millions from George's accounts and disappeared. Regina studied Mia's reaction. "You okay?" Mia set down the phone. "I'm fine." And she almost believed it. She thought part of her would celebrate George's downfall. Instead, she felt a confusing pang of sympathy mixed with the old hurt. But the morning rush arrived, filling the bakery with customers. Mia set aside her complicated feelings to focus on the job. By lunchtime, she still felt unsettled, until the bell over the door chimed. In stepped George Harrison, looking nothing like the confident tycoon who'd banished her years ago. He wore faded jeans, a rumpled shirt, and carried an air of humility. "What are you doing here?" Mia asked, her voice both guarded and rattled. He swallowed. I saw your bakery in Boston Magazine. I had to see you." She braced herself, hugging the memory of Sophie. "Let me guess. Victoria robbed you, and you're out of money. Now you've come to apologize? Or want something?" His gaze flicked away. "I deserve that. But it's not about money. I'm not here for me. I'm here for Sophie. I'm ready to be her father, if you let me." Mia crossed her arms. "You have no idea what you missed. 3 years is a long time in a child's life." George's voice cracked. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself. But please, just let me see her." A million thoughts thundered in Mia's head. She remembered Sophie's sweet innocence, how she occasionally asked, "Do I have a daddy?" Still, Mia had protected her from that heartbreak. Could she deny her daughter the chance to know him? She swallowed hard. "I'll think about it. But if you ever hurt her—" "I won't," George vowed, trembling with emotion. "Thank you, Mia." He left, the bakery door closing gently behind him. Mia found herself shaking, the past crashing into the present. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. A few days later, Mia stood by a bench at a local park, heart racing, Sophie playing on the swings. She told George he could come meet them for a short introduction. When he arrived, wearing a worn jacket and clutching a small gift bag, Mia immediately warned him, "No gifts. Not yet." He obediently set the bag aside, swallowing his pride. Sophie hopped off the swing. "Mama? Who's that?" Mia gently placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder. "Sweetheart, this is your dad. He wants to meet you." Sophie stared, eyes wide. "You're my daddy?" She seemed curious rather than fearful. George crouched, voice thick with nerves. "I'd like to be, if that's okay with you." To Mia's surprise, Sophie gave him a small smile. "Do you like cookies?" The sweet earnestness took them all by surprise. George managed a quiet laugh. "I love cookies." They spent an hour at the playground. George pushed Sophie on the swings, clapping with genuine delight at each attempt she made. Mia watched from the bench, heart twisting at the father-daughter bond she'd feared might never form. As they left, Sophie, unprompted, gave George a quick hug, calling him Daddy. His eyes dampened, though he blinked away the tears. Mia felt a pang of cautious hope. They agreed to meet again. Same time, same place next Saturday. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Saturdays became routine. George never missed a visit, always bringing dinosaur facts or coloring books, carefully abiding by Mia's rules. No big gifts, no extravagant gestures. In the 5th week, Mia allowed a bigger outing, the Children's Museum, where Sophie could explore a dinosaur exhibit. George arrived with tickets and a cheerful smile. Sophie dashed among the displays, squealing about T-Rex and Triceratops, while George listened patiently. Gradually, Mia saw George's steady presence. He learned Sophie's preferences, soothed her small anxieties, asked for no special favors. The months that followed saw him teaching Sophie to ride a scooter in the park, reading her bedtime stories on nights Mia had to work late at the bakery. Bit by bit, Mia's trust in him grew. Then Regina showed up with urgent news. Victoria had resurfaced, hinting at an impending custody fight. The shock terrified Mia. She worried George might fold to Victoria's demands or run again. But instead, he stood firm. "I'm not losing Sophie," he declared, facing Mia with a trembling voice. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect her this time." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The morning of the emergency hearing, a swirl of worry churned in Mia's gut. Victoria's legal team claimed to have new evidence painting George as unstable, using Sophie just to boost his reputation. The judge read their arguments. Mia's heart pounded, recalling how George once chose power over her and Sophie. But then came Mia's turn. She rose, explaining how George had been consistent, patient, devoted, and how Sophie thrived under his presence. She showed photos, simple father-daughter outings at museums, parks, Mia's bakery. Not PR stunts, but real, loving interactions. Her voice trembled. He made awful decisions before. He's changed. Sophie deserves a father who fights for her. Victoria's lawyer sputtered about old emails from 3 years ago, revealing how George once schemed to salvage his reputation. Yet Mia insisted. Yes, he was selfish. Yes, he hurt us. But the man standing here today isn't the same. The judge studied both sides carefully, then denied Victoria's request to revoke George's visitation. She scheduled periodic reviews, but allowed their arrangement to remain. Mia released a shaky breath, tears welling as George gently placed a hand on her shoulder. In the hallway, he whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." She wiped away her tears. "I did it for Sophie. She deserves this." Victoria left in a fury, vowing further legal battles. But her threats rang hollow. For now, they were safe. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Another month passed. Sophie's 3-year-old Christmas pageant approached. George joined every rehearsal, beaming with pride. On the big night, Mia and George sat together, watching Sophie in a homemade reindeer costume. Afterward, while they sipped hot chocolate at the bakery, Mia glimpsed the man George had become, patient, grateful, unwavering in his devotion to Sophie. "Thank you," he said quietly, leaning on the bakery's counter, "for giving me the chance I didn't deserve." Mia turned to see Sophie, drowsy from the evening's excitement, perched on a stool. She realized how seamlessly George fit in now. "Sophie deserves a father." Mia replied, "You stepped up, that's all." He smiled, a slight tremor in his voice. "I won't forget." She felt a tug in her chest, a cautious stirring of something akin to forgiveness. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 6 months later, under blossoming cherry trees, Sophie insisted on throwing George a little party at the bakery, her idea to celebrate all the Sundays he'd shown up. She baked dinosaur cookies topped with sprinkles, chattering about how Daddy loves them so much. Friends who'd witnessed Mia's journey gathered in the bakery, ready to surprise George. When he arrived, Sophie squealed, "Surprise!" She led him to a table stacked with bright cookies, half of them shaped like T-Rex or Triceratops. George's eyes shone. "You made these? All by myself?" Sophie boasted. "With Mama's help, but mostly me." After the festivities, Sophie nodded off in a corner booth, hugging her stuffed dinosaur. George helped Mia clean up the crumbs and confetti. When the last guest slipped out, the bakery was quiet. George cleared his throat, pulling out a folded document. "I've transferred my remaining Harrison Industries shares into a trust for Sophie. I don't want that old life overshadowing her future." He placed it in Mia's hands. "I choose her over everything else." Mia studied the paperwork, heart swelling. "You're giving up your last tie to the company?" George exhaled. "I have a job at a modest firm now, enough to support me, pay child support. The rest belongs to Sophie. I can't change the past, but I can build a future that's honest." Mia felt tears prick her eyes. "She's lucky to have you now." He looked to Sophie, her mouth slightly open in slumber. "I'm the lucky one." As Mia walked George to the door, a soft spring breeze drifted through the bakery windows. She remembered the first time they parted in a storm, how battered and shattered she'd felt. This parting was different. It was full of promise. "I'll see you Sunday," he said, lingering in the threshold. Sophie's already planned a new cookie design. Mia gave him a gentle nod. "We'll be here." George offered a soft smile, then disappeared into the twilight. Mia locked up, then glanced at Sophie dozing peacefully. Their life had changed profoundly, but for the better. She carefully lifted Sophie, heading upstairs to the small apartment they shared above the bakery. Their daughter stirred, whispering, "Mama, Daddy's cookies, sprinkles?" Mia chuckled. "Yes, baby, lots of sprinkles." In the quiet glow of the nightlight, Mia reflected on the long road from that cold, rainy mansion to this warm bakery home. She discovered her own resilience, and a father for Sophie who had finally learned to cherish the right things. They were not the family they once were, but they had become something stronger, forged through heartbreak and healing. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it together. father, mother, and child, building each new step with love and maybe a few extra sprinkles. If you were in Mia's situation, would you let someone who once abandoned you return for the sake of your child? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more heartwarming tales of resilience, redemption, and second chances. Asterisk asterisk.